There is a machine running right now in the background of your life, and it has already decided how you feel about your bank account today. You didn't build it. You didn't turn it on. You can't see it, touch it, or vote it out. But it is quietly telling you every single day whether you are winning or losing at money. And most people never even notice they are listening to it. Here's the uncomfortable part. This machine doesn't measure how much money you have. It measures something else entirely. And once you understand what that something else is, you will never look at a paycheck, a price tag, or a stranger's car the same way again. Let's open the machine. Right now, somewhere in the world, a person earning $400,000 a year feels broke. And somewhere else, a person earning $40,000 a year feels comfortable. Same currency, same planet, completely different ways. That's not a coincidence. That's the machine working exactly as designed. Because the machine was never built to measure wealth. It was built to measure distance. Distance from the people around you. Distance from the price of the things you want. Distance from the version of your life you were promised. Economists have a quiet, almost embarrassed name for the raw material this machine runs on. They call it money illusion. The idea that we don't actually process money in real terms, what it can buy, we process it in comparative terms, how it looks next to someone else's number. You'd think evolution would have wired us to just check the fridge. Do I have food? Am I safe? Instead, we check the neighbor's driveway. So why does this matter right now, in this exact moment in history, more than almost any other point in the last century? Because for the first time ever, the comparison machine has an internet connection. For most of human history, your reference point was the village, maybe 50 people, 100 at most. If you had a slightly bigger boat than your neighbor, you felt rich. The bar was local. The bar was small. Today, your reference point is everyone. A 26-year-old in a mid-sized city is no longer comparing themselves to their co-workers. They're comparing themselves to a curated highlight reel of the top 0.1% of earners on Earth, algorithmically pushed into their pocket every 4 seconds. The machine didn't get smarter. It just got a much crueler data set. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because underneath this psychological machine sits a second, quieter machine, a financial one. And this one isn't measuring your feelings. It's actually deciding mathematically whether your money is gaining or losing power while you sleep. Let's break it down slowly because this is the part almost nobody explains properly. When new money enters an economy, through central bank policy, through credit expansion, through stimulus, through whatever mechanism, it doesn't arrive everywhere at once. It doesn't fall like rain evenly on every bank account on earth. It enters through a door. And the people standing closest to that door get first access to it at old prices before the wider economy has adjusted. This has a name. Economists call it the Cantillon Effect, after an 18th century economist who noticed something simple but devastating. Whoever receives new money first can spend it before prices rise. Whoever receives it last is left buying the same goods at prices that have already gone up. Translate that into modern life and it looks like this. Asset owners, people holding stocks, real estate, companies tend to be closer to that door. Wage earners tend to be standing much further back in line. So when the money supply expands, asset prices tend to move first and move fast. Wages tend to move last and move slowly. Which means two people can be doing everything technically right, working hard, saving diligently, spending responsibly, and still end up on completely different sides of the machine. Not because one of them made better decisions, because one of them was standing closer to the door. This is the uncomfortable math nobody puts on a motivational poster. From the year 2000 to today, in most developed economies, the price of essential assets, moms especially, has climbed dramatically faster than the price of labor. A house that once cost roughly 3 to 4 times the average annual salary now, in many major cities, costs 8, 10, sometimes 15 times that salary. Meanwhile, wages, adjusted for what they can actually buy, have moved at a fraction of that speed. So the machine tells a very specific, very quiet story. It's getting cheaper to borrow money to buy assets. And it's getting more expensive to earn money to buy necessities. Two totally different economies running on the same currency at the same time in the same country. One for people who already own things. One for people who are still trying to. Now let's talk about the gap between the hype and the reality. Because this is where machine it's almost theatrical. The hype says, work hard, save consistently, and wealth will follow. Clean story. Comforting story. The kind of story that fits neatly into a graduation speech. The reality is messier. Saving money in a currency that is quietly losing purchasing power every year is not neutral. It's not safe. It's a decision, usually an unconscious one, to slowly lose ground to the people who are holding assets instead of cash. Here's the irony, and it is a genuinely strange one. The people who tell you just save your money and the system that is slowly eroding the value of saved money are operating in the exact same economy, often without anyone noticing the contradiction. Nobody's lying to you exactly. They're just repeating advice that made sense in a different decade, running on autopilot in a new one. And this is where the two machines, the psychological one and the financial one, start feeding each other. Because when your savings quietly lose ground to assets you don't own, you don't experience it as the money supply expanded and Cantillon Effect's redistributed purchasing power. You experience it as a feeling, a vague background hum of falling behind, of doing everything right and still not getting anywhere. And the internet is standing by, ready to hand you a very specific explanation for that feeling. Usually a wrong one. Usually one involving blame or a scapegoat or a guru with a course to sell you. Let's zoom out, because this stops being a personal finance story very quickly and becomes something much bigger. When large groups of financially reasonable people start feeling at scale like the system is quietly rigged against them, not through conspiracy, just through mechanism, that feeling doesn't stay contained to bank accounts. It shows up in politics, it shows up in birth rates, it shows up in how much people trust institutions, currencies, and each other. You can trace entire political movements, entire generational shifts in ambition and cynicism back to this exact mechanism. Not to laziness, not to entitlement, to a widening gap between where money enters the system and where most people are standing when it does. And the strange part is, almost nobody frames it this way. It gets framed as a generational character flaw. Too impatient, too distracted, too addicted to comparison. But the machine was rigged for distance long before anyone picked up a phone. So where does this leave you watching this right now, holding whatever number happens to be around today? Probably somewhere uncomfortable. Because once you see the sheen, you can't fully unsee it. You start noticing that feeling rich was never really about the number. It was about your position relative to a door you may or may not be standing near. You can play the game better once you understand the rules. Get closer to the door. Hold assets instead of just cash. Stop measuring your progress against a highlight reel engineered to make you feel behind. That's the practical part, and it matters. But there's a bigger question sitting underneath all of it, and I'm not going to pretend there's a clean answer. If the feeling of being rich or poor was never really about how much you have, if it was always about distance, comparison, and timing, then what exactly are we all working so hard to win? That's the question the machine never answers. It just keeps running.